What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about really a series of rumors around Resident Evil. It kind of came in waves. I think it actually all came from just one person, Dusk Golem, and obviously I think it's news enough that I think we got to throw together this weekend video. So we got remakes, we got rumors on RE9, whatever you want Resident Evil related, there's probably a rumor attached to it, so I want to go over it. Now, again, comes from Dusk Golem, who... iffy track record. He definitely gets things right. There was kind of, I think, an arc to his storyline where somebody pretended to be him, leaked a bunch of stuff that was all wrong, but it was like a fake. Like it was really like from an anime kind of a story arc there. But it seems like for the most part, the guy does get a lot of stuff right. And specifically Silent Hill, Resident Evil, kind of that horror Japanese genre, he does get a lot of stuff right. So you don't have to believe it. It could just be fun to kind of go over these things. But we're going to go over like a series of just he said this, he said that. All right. So starting with actually the most recent one at the time I'm recording this, at least. Okay. So he says there's a screenshot of something I said that'll probably float around, I predict. So just going to say it. Jill doesn't play any major role in RE9, unfortunately. This current hospital rumor floating around is 100% BS, crushing the Jill hopium now before wrong expectations are set. We will talk about that in a second. But then he was asked, what will be the next remake if you know? Code Veronica. And he said Zero is the next remake. Now that actually inadvertently, I didn't read that original post before I recorded this, that goes into, I think, the earliest thing, the originator of all of this stuff. So you have Zero being the next remake. That's fun. I would prefer, by the way, Veronica or Resident Evil 5. I'm a big Resident Evil 5 fan, weirdly enough. But in terms of the Jill stuff, see, that's interesting because we've heard, and I forget the person's name, okay, so I'm sorry about that, but there was that leaker, I'm pretty sure we made videos on it a few months back, that seemingly had info. I think he was a play tester. That was his background story, that he play tested the game and, he knew all these details. And, Jill was obviously mentioned, I think, as a playable character. And then also the hospital as like either the main setting or like the first area of the game. And so this directly kind of goes against that, right? So now we have a nice little battle going on where only one of them can be right? It's either she's important or she's not. And then the hospital's either in the game or it's not, right? Or it plays a major role versus it's not. So that's fun. It has led to a fun discussion, I think, online of like, what are they doing with Jill? Like, do they care about her? The male kind of, and look, I mean, make your characters male, female, focus on whichever ones you want. Tell good stories with good characters. That's what I say, okay? If you want to have a female lead, have a female lead. Make it a good character. Obviously, they're kind of flooded with good characters historically, so I'm not really worried. You know what I mean? If they choose her, if they don't choose her, it's not too big of a deal. But the last several games, and you look at even the games that they've picked to remake and stuff, yeah, there's a male slant to it, okay? Not that I, again, care too much because it's more about how good it is versus, the lead's gender, but it has brought up a fun little argument of like, do they care about Jill and Claire and characters like that or no? And so that's just something to kind of keep in mind. We'll see who's right because, again, kind of only one of them can actually be right. So then, I think before all this, or before some of it, he actually had kind of an update to that Zero remake, okay? So here's what he said, I think, on Reset Era. Something I wanted to mention to you, actually, while you're here, Zero remake is still very much in production. I think I know why you think it wasn't. The project had a big change in people working on it recently, but it's still very much being worked on. Back during RE2, RE3 times, there was someone I knew who thought RE3 wasn't happening, then due to a similar change in hands late in development, wasn't even really sure RE3 was a real thing anymore. And I have my suspicions you're in a similar boat to where I was back then in what I was hearing. And funny enough, because I've covered a lot of leaks and a lot of rumors for like a lot of years, okay? But I, in terms of me remembering like where these things come from, only recently have I started to like care enough to like remember people's names. I think I actually do remember that. I remember reading things, whether it, again, like actually in this case it wasn't true. I think I remember seeing stuff of like Trouble in Paradise, right, with RE3, like if the thing was in okay shape. And I mean, look, it's probably the weakest thing that they've done in the RE universe since 6, but it still did come out, like it never got canceled or anything. So I don't know. I feel like I remember actually what he's talking about, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's interesting. I mean, look, if he's right, he's right. Again, if he's wrong, he's wrong. I guess if he's wrong, then the game's can't, because that's in response to people speculating that the game is like canceled or not going to happen. So I hope he's right. I don't want him to be wrong. If he is wrong, then that means the game is canceled, right? So would like this to be a situation where he got this right. And then in terms of the final, I think this was actually the original post, at least that I saw, and it's the same kind of screenshot talking about the RE9 thing, but at the very end, wait for actual RE9 news. Nearly every RE9 rumor that's been floated around has been BS, and then it kind of links to all of the stuff that could actually be garbage below it. So I mean, look, in my opinion, like, it would be rather early, and I actually tried to not look at this stuff because I think a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, the leaks were like large amounts of the story. I don't really need to know like beginning, middle, end, the entirety of RE9's story. But to also kind of be fair to him, to Dusk Golem, right? Like, the idea that the entire game is floating around this early does kind of make it almost unreal, right? Like, unbelievable that it actually would be real, that actually it is the legit storyline. I mean, games have been leaked way early. Stories have been leaked. I mean, you have, like, even The Last of Us, where like the cutscenes and stuff came out way early. So it is possible. Like, you don't want to discount it. You don't want to write it off. But generally, especially for something like this, I mean, like, Capcom is pretty good at I mean, well, they did have that massive leak a couple of years back, so maybe they're not great at this. But, I don't know. I would like to believe that things that are coming out this early are actually not true. Just almost, honestly, to make it more fun. To make what's so fun about knowing everything about the game 2 years before? I like to know that the game is real. I would like to know, like, generally how the game's going to work, maybe the protagonist, but that's kind of it. Anything else, I don't need. I could experience it, obviously, like, during the game itself. So we'll see. Ultimately, like I said, this is just kind of like a fun speculation thing. He could be right about everything. He could be wrong about everything. The original stuff could also be wrong, even if he is wrong. You just don't know. You don't know any of it until Capcom speaks. I think that's also like an overarching just thing. I've seen it in a lot of the comments on these Reddit posts where it's like Capcom just needs to come out. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault, right? Like, if people talk. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, Capcom can't do anything to stop that. However, I mean, looking at it from the other side, they could show something. They could talk about it. You don't want to rush that. You don't want to do it too prematurely, but a trailer, like a reveal trailer, would stop a lot of, you know what I mean? Because then it's like, okay, well, if people are running with certain characters and they show a trailer with different characters, okay, well, everybody talking about it's wrong, right? You shut them up. You shut them up by actually showing the game. So, yes, that's true. At the same time, you don't want to force them to do it before they're comfortable. Otherwise, you have a whole other load of problems, that comes with it. So, they're in a tough spot. But I do agree with the idea of, please, Capcom, just talk about this game. It's been long enough. You could do so. We all know Capcom could do something here. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.